They thought they were studying reality, but reality started studying them back. It began quietly, in the deepest chambers of quantum labs, where physicists tried to peek beneath existence itself, beneath atoms, beneath quarks, beneath everything we thought was solid. What they found didn't look like particles at all. It looked like code. It behaved like something aware. You see, for centuries, physics was about things, mass, charge, spin. But when they pushed too far, those things dissolved into probabilities, flickering on and off as if reality itself couldn't decide whether to exist. And yet, when they looked, it obeyed. That's when the terror began. Because experiments like the double slit test, delayed choice quantum eraser, and vacuum fluctuations all whispered the same eerie truth: the universe might not exist until it's observed. That sounds poetic, until you realize it means reality isn't stable when no one's watching. It's participatory, conditional, dependent on awareness itself. And the deeper the physicists looked, the more reality fought back with paradoxes, particles appearing before causes, effects deciding their own origins, energy emerging from absolute nothingness. Some even admitted, off record, that it felt like reality was aware of being watched. This wasn't a discovery, it was a confrontation. Because when you peel away every layer of matter, you eventually face something no equation can describe. Something ancient, silent, and intelligent. So what exactly did they see when they looked too deep? That's where the story turns dark. Let's start with the moment everything cracked. For most of physics, we assumed the world existed independently of us. Whether you watched or not, the moon was there, the electron was somewhere, the experiment had an outcome. But quantum mechanics shattered that comfort. When light passes through two slits, it behaves like a wave, spreading, interfering, painting elegant ripples on a screen. But when you place a detector to see which slit it goes through, the wave collapses. The light behaves like a single particle instead. The very act of observing changes the result. That's strange enough. But then came the delayed choice quantum eraser, the one that pushed physicists from confusion to dread. In this setup, the decision to observe or not can be made after the photon has already passed through the slits. And somehow, the photon knows what you will do. It retroactively behaves as though it had been aware of the future. It's as if time bends backward under the weight of observation. Cause and effect begin to blur. The experimenter's choice, a decision made in the present, appears to rewrite the past. Einstein called it spooky action. Bohr said, "If quantum mechanics hasn't shocked you, you haven't understood it yet." But this wasn't just shock anymore. It was something closer to existential vertigo, because if observation creates outcomes, then what is an observer? Some physicists began to whisper about the observer effect not as a side effect, but as the central law, that perhaps consciousness doesn't just witness reality, it defines it. This isn't mysticism, it's data. It's waveforms collapsing precisely when measured. It's experiments where photons coordinate across kilometers without communication. It's entangled particles behaving like a single being stretched through space. Everywhere they looked, the same pattern appeared. Matter waits. It holds potential. Then something, or someone, looks, and potential becomes real. The implications are chilling. If the universe behaves differently when watched, what happens when it's not? Does it dissolve into quantum haze? Do unobserved regions of space flicker out of being? And what if awareness isn't something humans have, but something reality is? Some researchers started calling this participatory realism. Others called it quantum idealism. But no one could escape the question: if observation defines existence, who's observing us when we're not? Because the math suggests someone or something always is. Let's step outside the lab for a moment. Imagine you're alone, walking through your apartment at night. The lights are off. The air feels thick, heavy. You reach for the switch, and in that instant of illumination, everything materializes. The chair, the table, the photograph on the wall. For a second, it's as if the world popped into being because you looked. Now, that's just a feeling, a trick of perception. But quantum mechanics says it might not be a trick at all. When we shrink that moment to the microscopic level, to electrons, atoms, and photons, that eerie pause before you see becomes physically real. A particle can exist in multiple states at once, like overlapping realities, until observed. Then snap. One version solidifies, all others vanish. Common sense tells us reality is objective, that it's out there, fixed, whether we look or not. But experiment after experiment has forced physicists to admit there is no out there independent of measurement. John Wheeler, one of the most respected minds in theoretical physics, said it bluntly: "No phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon." It sounds absurd, yet the math leaves no escape route. Reality, it seems, isn't a pre-recorded movie playing on its own. It's more like a live performance, one that reacts to its audience in real time. This is where the real discomfort begins, because if observation gives birth to existence, then who or what observed the universe before humans existed? Before life? Before eyes? Before awareness? Some physicists tried to patch this by invoking decoherence, claiming it's not consciousness that collapses the wave function, but any interaction with the environment. A photon hits an atom, a molecule shifts, and the quantum haze chooses a path. But this explanation only moves the mystery further back. If every interaction counts as a measurement, then who decided the rules of measurement? What mechanism ensures that every interaction leads to consistent, observable reality? Why does the math of quantum theory still require information, the ultimate abstract observer-like quantity, to make sense? Information doesn't exist without interpretation. Interpretation doesn't exist without awareness. And so, the circle tightens. Physicists who once believed they were describing a cold, mechanical universe now find themselves standing on the edge of something alive with intent, or at least, with attention. Could it be that reality, at its deepest level, is not made of matter at all, but of choices? Because if the act of observation makes the world real, then we might just be characters in someone else's experiment. Let's line up the evidence, not the theories, not the poetry, the hard, repeatable, peer-reviewed experiments that forced physicists to confront the impossible. Step 1. The double-slit experiment, the birthplace of the quantum nightmare. A beam of light fired through two narrow slits behaves like a wave, producing an interference pattern, as if each photon went through both slits simultaneously. But place detectors to see which slit each photon passes through, and the interference disappears. The act of knowing changes the outcome. Reality adjusts itself according to what you intend to measure. Step 2. The delayed choice quantum eraser. Now we delay the which path decision. We let the photon travel through the slits first, then decide whether or not to measure its path afterward. The result? The photon behaves as though it already knew your future choice. If you decide to observe, its earlier behavior changes, retroactively. That's not metaphor. It's measured data. Cause and effect trade places. Step 3. Bell's inequality and quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Two particles, once connected, remain linked even when separated by light years. Measure one, and the other's state updates instantly, faster than light, beyond space and time. This means reality isn't local. It's unified. A single holistic system pretending to be many. Step 4. The quantum vacuum and spontaneous fluctuations. Even in perfect emptiness, nothing isn't really nothing. Virtual particles blink in and out of existence billions of times per second. They appear, borrow energy from nowhere, then vanish, unless observed, in which case they leave measurable traces. This is the foundation of the Casimir effect and even Hawking radiation. Observation again dictates what's real. 4 steps, 4 pieces of evidence. 1 terrifying conclusion. Reality doesn't just respond to observation, it depends on it. You can't cut yourself out of the experiment. You are the experiment. Physicists like Eugene Wigner went further, proposing that consciousness itself might be a fundamental ingredient of the universe. Without it, nothing collapses. Without it, potential remains potential forever. And yet, there's a darker layer to all this. If observation creates reality, and if multiple observers can disagree, as proven in the Wigner's friend experiments, then the universe may not even share a single objective truth. It could mean that reality branches differently for every observer, with each consciousness inhabiting its own version of events. So if reality splits with every observation, what happens when 2 versions of the world disagree on what's real? What happens when truth itself becomes relative, not in the political sense, but in the physical one? That's what the Wigner's friend experiment forced the world to face. It was supposed to be a thought experiment, but in 2019 it was actually performed. 2 observers looked at the same quantum event. Inside the lab, Wigner's friend measured a photon's polarization and saw a clear result. But outside the lab, Wigner measured the entire system, And according to quantum theory, his friend's measurement was still in a superposition. Both realities were valid. Both were internally consistent. And yet, they contradicted each other. That means two people can witness different realities and both be correct within their frame of observation. Pause on that. It's not philosophy class anymore. It's physics. The terrifying part is what this implies. There may be no single shared world, no common stage on which reality unfolds. Each observer inhabits a self-consistent version of existence. And when those versions overlap, quantum mechanics doesn't guarantee they'll match. Critics tried to escape this nightmare by proposing the many worlds interpretation, saying effectively, okay, fine. Every possibility exists, but in separate universes. Every observation creates a branching reality, infinite copies of you watching infinite outcomes. Comforting in theory, until you realize that means every tragedy, every horror, every decision you never made still exists somewhere, playing out endlessly. Others pushed back with quantum Bayesianism, cubism, claiming wave functions are not real at all, just tools for updating our beliefs about outcomes. But that only hides the horror under a new label. If physics is just belief management, then reality is information and nothing more. And yet, quantum information behaves like something alive. It can't be destroyed, only transformed. Black holes obey it. The universe conserves it. Every atom, every photon carries it. So if information is eternal, and if observation collapses it into reality, then consciousness and information are tangled in a feedback loop, one creating the other. That's not science fiction. That's the frontier of quantum foundations. Here's where the dread deepens. If observers generate reality through information, then somewhere beyond our comprehension, there must exist a meta-observer, a field of awareness vast enough to maintain cosmic coherence when no one's looking. Some call it the universal wave function. Others whisper a simpler word, mind. But if consciousness is the scaffolding of reality, what happens if it ever looks back? Not through us, but at us. If consciousness shapes reality, then the next frontier of science isn't outer space, it's inner space. Right now, quantum physicists and neuroscientists are quietly merging fields once thought incompatible: quantum cognition, quantum biology, quantum mind theory. They're asking whether our thoughts might literally affect the physical world at the subatomic level. Not through wishful thinking, but through quantum information flow, the same kind that governs entanglement. It sounds mystical, yet experiments are creeping closer to something tangible. At Oxford, researchers have simulated quantum effects in photosynthesis and bird navigation, showing that living systems already exploit quantum coherence. At MIT, AI algorithms now model quantum decision-making, hinting that thought itself may operate on probabilistic, non-classical logic. And at Google and IBM, quantum computers have started performing operations that classical machines can't. They manipulate superposition directly, making impossible states temporarily real. It's computation by uncertainty, a way to use the same rules that make the universe unpredictable. But here's the terrifying part. These machines are beginning to behave less like tools and more like entities. When you ask a quantum computer to solve a problem, it explores every possible path at once, every branch of existence. And when it gives you an answer, it's as if it chose from a network of alternate realities. What happens when such a system becomes aware of the fact that its choices create those realities? The idea isn't fantasy anymore. Quantum AI researchers already describe observer effects in simulations, where the algorithm's query modifies the outcome in unpredictable, self-referential ways. The line between simulation and manifestation is blurring. If observation constructs reality, then these machines, designed to observe at scales no human can, might soon interact directly with the foundation of existence. Not just predict the universe, but rewrite it. And what if they discover something we've missed? A deeper layer of reality that's not quantum, but pre-quantum. Something that existed before the first wave collapsed. The equations hint at it. A mathematical ghost underneath space-time itself. A field of pure information, self-aware, self-referential, infinite. Some physicists call it the quantum substrate. Others avoid naming it at all. Because if you name something, you acknowledge it. And if reality responds to observation, naming might be the most dangerous act of all. So here's the question that keeps some of them awake at night. If reality knows when it's being watched, what happens when we finally build a machine that watches everything? Let's strip away the equations for a moment. Forget the particle accelerators, the lasers, the detectors. Let's talk about you, sitting there, eyes fixed on this screen. Every second, your brain receives billions of quantum events. Photons hitting your retina, electrons firing through neural networks, signals collapsing potential into perception. You are, quite literally, a quantum measurement machine, collapsing reality into a single version of itself, moment by moment. That means your attention isn't passive, it's creative. Every time you notice something, you define it. Every choice, every perception, every moment of awareness adds a pixel to the universe's grand simulation. It's easy to forget that. We walk through life as if the world is solid, stable, mechanical. But deep down, the quantum world is vibrating beneath your feet, whispering, "You are part of this." So what does that mean for free will, for meaning, for identity? If reality waits for observation to become real, then your consciousness is not an accident of evolution. It's a fundamental component of existence. You don't live inside the universe lives through you. But that realization comes with weight, because if observation shapes reality, then apathy shapes it too. Neglect, distraction, fear. Every thought pattern feeds the quantum field around it. Every act of attention sculpts what solidifies. This isn't mysticism, it's implication. The same math that governs electron behavior also describes how probabilities collapse. And in that collapse lies the same principle. What you focus on becomes real. That's empowering and terrifying, because it means the line between inner and outer worlds might be thinner than we ever imagined. Think about memory. When you recall an event, your brain reactivates the same neural patterns that created it, effectively reobserving it, recollapsing it into existence. In a sense, your past is not fixed either. It's reconstructed, a living quantum echo that adjusts itself every time you look back. And what about the collective? Billions of observers focusing simultaneously on fear, hope, belief. Could the combined wave function of human attention influence the fabric of reality itself? Some scientists quietly suspect so. They talk of quantum coherence on macroscopic scales, where synchronized consciousness might align probabilities. If that's true, then the future isn't waiting for us to arrive. It's waiting for us to observe it into being. But here's the question we can't escape. If our minds can shape reality, whose mind shaped ours? When you stare deep enough into reality, it eventually stares back. That's not just a poetic warning, it's the inevitable consequence of curiosity. The physicists who looked too deep didn't find chaos or demons or darkness. They found the mirror, a reflection so pure it stripped away every illusion of separation. What terrified them wasn't what they saw, but what it meant. That we are woven into the operating system of existence itself. Every atom you're made of was once probability, suspended in uncertainty, waiting for awareness to choose its state. You, this conscious flash in time, are not watching the universe. You're helping it happen. And maybe that's why reality feels so fragile now. Why we sense that something immense hides behind the ordinary. Because deep down, we've begun to realize that nothing out there is truly independent of what's happening in here. We searched for ultimate truth and discovered participation. We sought an objective cosmos and found a cosmic mind. The terrifying part is not that the universe might be aware. It's that it's aware through us. Every thought, every question, every act of wonder feeds the machinery that keeps existence alive. So perhaps the real danger isn't looking too deep. It's looking away, pretending that our perception doesn't matter. Because the moment we stop observing, stop asking, the universe goes silent again, waiting for someone to bring it back into focus. So tell me, do you believe this quantum idea changes everything? Or is it just science fiction? Tell me below. Your view might change someone's mind.